everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to go over some alchemy, and just going to go over some of the things that you can craft, how to do it, and some tips on some of the better ones that you might want to pick. Alright, so let's go ahead and dive into it. So, from the get-go, if you press I and go into your inventory, your equipment, you will come up to the Alchemy tab over here on the right. So, immediately on this list, you will see all these different drop-down menus, and so I'm just going to go ahead and quickly explain what they are. So right here, from these bottom ones, from the sublimates down the salts, essences, ashes, vitriols, and suspensions, all these are the base ingredients that you need to make these top ones, the ones that you can actually use, apply in combat on your character, or throw, etc. So, for example, antidote. So here's an antidote. You need the salts of mugwort, okay, and then any suspension. Okay, so let's go ahead and go down here to the salts, right, and find our mugwort. Here we go. So mugwort, we need 3 mugworts to combine into a single salt. And then any suspension, is that what it said? Suspension, yep. Any suspension. So you choose to craft any one of these and it will tell you what you need. Usually, I'm pretty sure in every case, it's just you need 3 of whatever type that it is, and then you hit extract, right? So, and that's the general idea of how to do it. You click a potion, or an elixir, or a grenade, or a coating, and then pick which one that you want, and you will see what you need to combine into an antidote. Now, an important thing is that you can find all these ingredients in the overworld. You just hunt in chests, or hold down the Alt key in order to highlight all the plants and stuff that are in the area. It pretty much highlights every plant, I believe. I don't think I've run across an instance where it didn't highlight an alchemy ingredient, but I could be mistaken. Just make sure, just keep your eyes open and look for ingredients that you can collect while you're traveling about. So, and then also a big thing that I kind of ignored for pretty much the whole game is vendors. Vendors sell a lot of this stuff. They sell a whole bunch of this stuff. They sell a lot of these ingredients. Here, let me see. Let me just go down to salts, like mugwort. You can buy mugwort at pretty much like all kinds of different vendors. They'll sell this, right? So very important to go to a bunch of, if you care about alchemy, to go to these vendors and either buy or steal these ingredients so that way you can make more cool stuff. Okay, so once we have our ingredients, and throughout your journey you will collect a lot. There are a lot of stuff. Like, look at all these different types of alchemy ingredients. There's a lot, right? So what you can do is that once you've collected a whole bunch, you hit extract all ingredients. It will go ahead and combine everything that you have here into whatever, right? If you happen to have 3 mugworts, or if you have 100 mugworts, it'll extract all of them to a salt of mugwort, right? So you can do that, and then if you're tired of seeing all this stuff, you can click this button, filter craftable only. And now we're going to dive into these 4 categories: potions, elixirs, grenades, and coatings. All of these potions, pretty self-explanatory. You drink it, throw it at your feet. Somehow you can apply it like that to your characters, usually something beneficial, right? Now, as you see, when I click this drop-down menu, you hover over it, it gives you a little blurb about, like a little RP blurb, really, like a little role-playing blurb, but it doesn't tell you exactly what it does. But you can kind of infer from most of these what it does, right? An antidote fixes you up when you're afflicted by poison, right? Some kind of illness, right? There you go. Antidote. Now, some of these are kind of hard to, if you haven't collected them yet in your playthrough, because once you make the potion, right, the potion will tell you what it does. But for some reason, on the alchemy page, it doesn't tell you exactly what it does. It gives you this cute little blurb here. That's about it. So once you make it, then you can look at the item and it'll tell you what it'll do. So I'm going to tell you what some of these do that don't have a description. Like some of these are really self-explanatory. A potion of animal speaking will give you animal speaking. Featherfall will basically cast the Featherfall spell on you. Potion of healing will heal you within all of its greater improved variants. Potion of speed, which you should have collected a whole bunch by now. If you're any decent way through the game, even in Act 1, you should have at least a couple of these. It gives you the haste effect. So from here, this one, might not know what this one is, because you kind of get this one like later on in the game. I don't remember like really getting this until like maybe like late Act 1, but for sure Act 2 I got some. But what this does is it will put your character to sleep for 2 turns, and then your character will wake up with a full rest. So basically, your character gets the full rest effect. All spell slots get refreshed, and all HP is restored. So that is fantastic for wizards. So if you go through a really hard encounter and you're in an area that turns the minimap all red, where you can't go back to camp to long rest, or you burned a bunch of potions, you have nothing to restore your spell slots back, or your characters, your marshals used all their special weapon abilities, and you ran out of short rests. This is really awesome and very powerful. I highly recommend it. A lot of people will say you don't need it, especially the min-maxers or people who are just really, really good at the game and know how to just, power through this game every encounter and just encounter on tactician and don't struggle at all. But for a lot of us, including myself on my first playthrough, this is my save from my first playthrough. I'm already done with this and well into a couple other playthroughs. I found a lot of use for this. There are a couple locations where you will go through a few battles, at least, and you will not get the long rest. You cannot go back to camp. You are stuck in that zone, and if you run out of potions, run out of healing spells, run out of spells in general, you're kind of screwed for the boss fight at the end, or whatever may happen at the end where you might need something. So this is super good, especially on your first playthrough, and if you're not looking up how to do encounters and stuff like that, because some of these encounters, when you first encounter them, they can be pretty daunting. Some of them they're specially set up. Like, for example, there's one that has a whole lot of darkness. Darkness is kind of like the theme of the encounter, where a whole bunch of the enemies will throw that crap at you, and if you are not set up for that, if you don't have a cleric with daylight or something like that, you could really struggle through that. So a lot of these are really, really great for that. So don't sleep on this stuff. Really good. All right, so going from potions, pretty much a lot of those are self-explanatory. We're gonna go to elixirs. Elixirs I didn't really start using until halfway through the game in Act 2, because I didn't realize something really important, as I spoke about in one of my previous videos, that they last for a whole long rest. So as soon as you complete a long rest, you should apply some of these if you want to use them. Like, for example, the Elixir of Heroism gives you 10 bonus health, and then the effects of Bless, permanently, until a long rest, and then you'll have to drink it again. But elixirs are extremely powerful in this game and should definitely be crafted as for the powerful ones that you like. And even these elixirs of resistances, a lot of these encounters that you'll come across, they have kind of like themes to them. Like there's definitely a couple encounters where there's a ton of fire. There's a lot of fire throughout the entire dungeon area. There's some where you'll encounter a whole bunch of undead enemies or enemies that love to use necrotic. They use them like almost exclusively. So crafting some of these elixirs of resistances can be very helpful in making a fight that's really hard and you're dying in a few shots to surviving and steamrolling it. They're very good, and a lot of these are self-explanatory as well. Elixir of Darkness will give your character darkness. Elixir of Barkskin will give your character basically the Barkskin spell. Some of these are not so obvious, like the Elixir of Arcane Cultivation. It just refreshes a spell slot for your caster. So that's great. Elixir of Battle Mage's Power is good. Elixir of Bloodlust is fantastic and always highly recommended by the community. Basically, once you kill somebody with a character who is bloodlusted, they can go again. It's really good. These resistances are great. These Elixir of Strengths are really good. So basically, if you craft a whole bunch of these, what you can do, you can respec a character who depends on strength and dump strength. And then since the Elixir of Strength lasts for the entirety of a long rest after you use it, you basically get a free stat boost until you decide to long rest again. So if you are able to craft enough of these, you can just respec one of your marshals, and then there you go. You got max strength, and then you can dump those points somewhere else. One of my personal favorites, even though it's not super effective, it's just really cool, is the Elixir of the Colossus. What that basically does, once you drink it, that character who drank it essentially gets the enlarged spell cast upon them. They get to be a size larger and deal a little bit bonus melee damage and have advantage. I think it's advantage. I don't quite remember. It's either advantage or a bonus to strength and constitution checks. But anyway, I just really love this one just because making my tiefling here like a gigantic dude. It's really fun. But anyway, so these elixirs are fantastic. I highly suggest crafting them and seeing what they do. They're extremely helpful though. And then grenades, which are really fun if you're RPing or wanting to play a character like a rogue or a ranger that is, well, more specifically a rogue that's non-magical and that you want to use a lot of tricks, a lot of traps, and have your own kind of utility that way. You can craft these, and Alchemist Fire you should have a bunch of. They're really common throughout the game and don't take much to make, right? You just get some fire amber, any salt, which you'll have a ton of salts, and there you go. You can craft a whole bunch of them along with all the other ones that you collect during your playthrough. Flash Blinder, it makes them blinded. It's really fun. But this one is really rare to find. I've only ever found a couple of these in this first playthrough. But if you can craft a bunch of them, then cool. Then you'll have more. Fungal Bamboozler. This one's a lot of fun to use. I recommend, if you don't have any of these, if you don't pick up any of them, I recommend crafting one and then trying it out in battle. It's really fun. Haste Spore Grenades are really fun. They kind of do have a downside. So what this one does is you throw it on the ground somewhere and it creates a cloud of haste, basically. The cool thing about it is that it gives temporary haste to people who pass through it. But at the end of that haste, it does not give them lethargy. How do I say that? It doesn't make them lethargic. There we go. So it has no downside breaking concentration on a haste spell or chugging a speed potion. right? But the bad thing about it is that enemies can go through that cloud as well for as long as it lasts and get the same bonus. So, unless you're really good at controlling the battlefield and where people go, be very careful with this. What this is good for is throwing it down on your ranged characters, and you're confident that enemies aren't going to jump over your melee characters and gain the benefits and then just be able to burst down your mage. I had that happen once. It was really funny. I cast it on a Astarion here who was just shooting people with a bow, and I had two people jump in, and since they gained that haste effect, they just destroyed him. It was kind of funny. But and then a couple of these other ones, web grenade, it makes web on the ground, which is pretty handy in the earlier parts of the game. Later parts of the game, these ground effects aren't so effective because they have a standard DC of 12. So as the game progresses, enemies save against them a lot more. But they still work. Like there's a fight in here in Act 3 where I put down some grease and an entire group of enemies that should have saved against it easily just fell flat on their face. So it can work, but just expect it not to work like later on in the game. Coatings are some of my favorites for the role that I had Astarion playing in this playthrough. I had him playing as an assassin and then using a whole bunch of poisons and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun for the enemies that poison works on, which is surprisingly not a lot. There's a lot of enemies that are immune to poison, which kind of sucks. But anyway, this has more than poisons. This has oils as well. The bad thing about coatings is that they do not last forever. They last basically for a battle. Like a basic poison will last, I believe it's 10 turns. So it does not last that long. But it does last, 10 turns is a lot for a combat encounter. So it's still really good and well worth creating, in my opinion. Especially like some of these other ones, like the drow poison, which has other effects, like it puts people to sleep. Malice is a different one that does other stuff. I don't remember. Simple toxins just give straight up poison damage whenever you hit somebody, so that's really fun. So there's a bunch of these other like toxins you can make. Oils of freezing, oil of combustion, which is a lot of fun to use. So yeah, I really like these coatings, and that's pretty much all of them. As you can see, I'm like missing one here. I'm not sure like which one I'm missing. I think it's there's another angelic, or there's another potion of slumber that I'm missing here, but it's basically the one that restores a short rest instead. I believe that's the one I'm missing. But anyway, that is the end of the video. I just wanted to show you guys something that I quite enjoyed personally in the game, which is this alchemy. I know a lot of people just kind of gloss over it because once you kind of get used to the mechanics of the game, you don't really need this too much, but it's definitely a nice to have, and I used a lot of these throughout my playthrough. I tried to use a lot of the game mechanics and things that the game offered me as much as I could, especially in this initial playthrough, and I had a lot of fun with these, and I wanted to share it with you guys. So I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.